Hi, I'm Father Burns.
And I'm Stina.
And this is the Living Fullness Podcast. On this episode, we're going to chat about flirting, immoral or not.
If you're new here on the Living Fullness Podcast, we have a chat about a whole range of topics, including virtues, building healthy relationships, spiritual life, and occasionally we do a book study as well. And we're so happy that you've decided to join us today.
All right, so flirting. Is it immoral?
I don't know, let's have a chat.
Okay.
Isn't that the whole point of the episode?
It totally is.
Should we just spoil it right from the start?
Let's spoil it from the start.
Okay, let's just start spoiling.
Yeah, okay. All right, away you go. Spoil.
No, it's not immoral. Spoil.
Or is it? I mean, who knows? No, okay. So let's go.
Okay, there may be one. Let's just talk.
Let's talk about this more fully.
All right.
Okay.
Let's as always, let's start with defining the terms. What are we talking about when we talk about flirting? So generally what tends to happen is when we talk about flirting, most people's minds will go immediately to sexual or romantic attraction. That's like the only space the only thing that flirting can possibly mean is that there's a sexual attraction that exists here. There is some element of truth to that. For some people, that is purely what flirting is about. But actually, flirting also serves purposes like playfulness. It also serves purposes of boosting self-esteem for a person as well. And it's a way of indicating that we also kind of get the social cues. We get how to behave in society, that we understand what attraction looks like, that we know how to communicate to another person, that we're drawn to them, whether romantically or not, that we're drawn to them in some way, that we're attracted to them in some way, and that we can do that in a kind of playful manner, that it doesn't have to be cold, hard, brash, words only. Hey, I like you. Cool. I like you. Like, it doesn't have to be like that. We actually have.
Oh, wow. I just got flashbacks to like high school, man. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry.
You
Continue.
poor thing. But it actually demonstrates that we understand what it means to live in part of a community and that we have some like healthy maturation happening. We have social skills. Yeah. We're able to read other people's cues and we're able to send signals of friendliness and openness towards other people. So it's actually a way of kind of communicating then, like an invitation to another person to engage back, to reciprocate back in some kind of communication.
Yeah. Yep. So and it's a normal interaction, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
healthy.
and it's a perfectly normal human behavior which occurs in a multitude of interactions. When Dr. Matthew Tan, who we've had on the show a few times, when he was considering coming to the seminary to be the Dean of Studies, he was in Sydney.
Yep.
And we needed a new Dean of Studies, and I said to the apostolic administrator and at the time and our rector, I said, look, I know a guy and I reckon he's the dude. And I put it out there and he wasn't ready at that stage, but then he got in contact later on and he's like, is that still open? I'm like, yes, it's open. It's open. It's wide open, man. So he came to Wagga to investigate things. And in some sense, I had to sell Wagga to him a little bit, right? So I found out things about Wagga I never knew, right? I'm like, how many Asian stores in Wagga? It's like stacks of them. We have stacks of Asian stores in Wagga. This is awesome. And he's like, do you have Asian stores in Wagga? Yes. Yes, we do have Asian stores in Wagga. Let me tell you all about them. I've done my research, sir. And I'm effectively selling him on this thing, and there is a certain kind of flirtation that is involved there, completely absent and devoid of every sense of romance, right? Yeah. But there's a certain kind of contractual flirtation that's involved there, right? And Dr. Patrick Carnes, who's a psychologist, makes the point that flirtation is something that actually exists in the basic building blocks of human relationships of all sorts, not just of a romantic sort. Mm-hmm. So it's a normal interaction. Now, looking to the romantic front, I sometimes get asked, Father, is it okay to flirt? Is it moral to flirt? And my initial reaction is, well, I sure hope so, because I I don't know how else romantic relationships start. You know, so
There goes all of humanity.
right. So for the record, yes, it's okay. It's fine and good to flirt. However, not all flirting is equal, right? And so the kind of flirting will depend on the nature of the relationship.
Where things can get a bit challenging, I suppose, is depending on what the actual desired effect is of flirting and what we're trying to communicate by engaging in flirting. So if we're flirting to cause arousal in another person, but our relationship actually isn't in a place where that can lead to something that's healthy and appropriate for that relationship, then that actually is a kind of flirting that's unkind and uncharitable.
Right. So the lingering touch of a boyfriend or a girlfriend that's inappropriate for their relationship.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, exactly right. Then there's also like if we're flirting to manipulate the situation or the person's interest in you with no intention to actually enter into any form of relationship with them. This is where we see feelings get hurt, where people are deliberately or consciously playing with someone else's emotions because, hey, it's fun. Like, how many numbers can I get by the end of the night?
This is the Andrew Tate approach, right? This is the right.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. When in reality, we're sending out signals there to say, hey, I'm actually interested in you because I'm now receiving something from you, i.e. your number, which gives the intention or at least a perception that I have some idea of giving you a call.
Yep.
But I'm actually not planning on it because my aim is just to see how many numbers I can get by the end of the night to see if I've had a good night tonight or not.
Yep.
Like I'm not actually in it for what I'm trying to convince you that I am. So that would be an inappropriate way as well. Then there's also like overtly flirting with like multiple people when you're actually in a committed relationship.
Yeah.
That can send all kinds of like signals that either, and it can say lots of different things. Like it can say something about the relationship that you're actually in. When you're someone, if you're in a committed relationship and you're out there overtly flirting with other people and people know you're in a relationship, that kind of makes them go, are you not happy in your relationship? Or are you the type of person who isn't loyal when you're in a relationship? It gives signals about what's going on in your current relationship and what kind of a person are you if you're in a way kind of willing to step over the boundaries that exist within or should exist within that relationship.
I hear you.
Ask all sorts of questions. Also kind of gives a sense of, you know, even if you are unhappy, like, is this just you trying to keep your options open? Like, why haven't you made a choice here?
A bit of the supermarket freedom mentality.
Yeah.
I want to be able to make a choice while maximizing all my choices.
Yeah.
Which is just an impossibility.
Yeah, but also says something about security and insecurity.
Right, absolutely.
If you're constantly looking for the next thing because you're not content with what's there. So that can be a problem as well.
Definitely.
Then there's also flirting in the wrong settings as well. It's probably not the right place to be flirting with someone on the other side of the church during worship. Like if we should be worshiping, we should be worshiping. Leave that stuff for after. When there's plenty of opportunity to mix and mingle, go for it then. But not within the context whilst when you're supposed to be in the middle of prayer, in the middle of communal prayer as well. That's not the space for it. But at the same time, there's also like situations where flirting is almost expected. Like you're almost expected to enter into some kind of a flirtatious, playful space at New Year's Eve parties. Like no one goes to a New Year's Eve party and expects to have like business talk. Unless you're,
it's true. It's true.
But like everyone's expecting a playfulness to it. There's a tone that's already been set. Yeah. Similar to dance clubs. Like people are going for all kinds of reasons. Part of it is to flirt, sometimes in a very overt and very sexualized manner.
Yeah.
But there's an expectation that there's going to be some flirting that's going to happen in this space. That's what this space is created for. Yeah. Even weddings.
So true.
Weddings are spaces where there's supposed to be an element of playfulness, particularly if you're a single person, you're a friend of the bride or the groom, there's going to be an expectation of some level of flirtation.
Yep.
That's to happen. But then also within like the Australian culture and context to pretty much any like event that's like a bigger event than just maybe barbecue at someone's house or your neighbor's house or whatever. Anything more than that where there's alcohol involved, you're kind of expected to loosen up a bit. You're expected to just, have some fun, play.
And alcohol can then take that to an inappropriate level.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It doesn't have to.
But it can.
But it can.
But it can. Yeah.
Look, what are then some healthy and good ways of flirting? And look, I'm going to ask you to drive this section entirely because the bottom line is when it comes to romantic flirtation, the last time I was romantically flirting with anybody was quite some time ago.
Yeah, sure.
Can you tell us about what good, healthy flirtation might look like?
I mean, you're kind of excluding yourself from your own experience of being in past shoes as well. I mean, you hear from married couples all the time.
I do. That's true.
We do kind of have, I mean, we have to talk about flirting in terms of which kind of relationship we're talking about as well. So
I also have stacks of young people coming to me and being like, I like that person. And you're like, okay.
Cool, do something about it.
Do something about it. So,
So I guess we have to talk about it maybe if we can talk about it in the sense of married couples.
Okay.
So obviously within the space of a marriage, there is a lot more scope of what flirting can look like. You actually can go to the space of arousing the other, to arouse the partner, because a marriage will allow for sexual intimacy that is appropriate and healthy. But even within marriage, you still want to be careful about when you use flirtation and the kinds of flirtation that you use. Because I'm thinking, for a couple who are using, something like natural family planning and they're not, that are maybe just their life choices and predicaments at this point in time, they've decided it's probably not going to be best that they engage in sexual intimacy during certain times of a woman's cycle in order to be able to prevent a pregnancy from occurring right now. In that kind of a season, you don't then want to be initiating and instigating sexual arousal in your partner, because you know that it's not going to end up where these desires are wanting to go. So it would be totally unkind and uncharitable and unloving towards your partner to use certain ways of flirtation. So even within marriage, you still want to be intentional.
Yeah.
I don't even want to say cautious. I just want to say intentional about how you use playfulness and flirtation.
Yes.
Doesn't mean you don't flirt. It just means that you find other ways
of
to express
flirtation.
your affection and to express your desire and love for that person that isn't going to sexually arouse them and then frustrate them when it doesn't lead to where these desires ought to lead them to. So we have that. We have what happens within marriage and flirting. If we're talking about unmarried, then healthy flirtation, we kind of need to go, what's the purpose? In the start we were talking about, flirtation actually communicates a kind of enjoyment of the other person's company. And you can have a space of doing that without having romantic interest. There's a playfulness that's appropriate.
Sure.
And it is a kind of flirtation that happens in order to try and kind of win them over. But it's only within the context of that conversation, because everyone's just enjoying the vibe of that conversation.
Right.
When that conversation's over, there's no plans of anybody seeing anybody.
No, for sure.
Just in that moment, when the conversation moves to the next group, again, if everyone's free, there's no lingering expectations that somebody will do something more.
Yes.
Because there's no romantic interest involved. So there's that. Then we have the kind of flirtation that is trying to communicate, yes, there is an enjoyment of your company, but also I have a romantic interest here, or at least a growing interest here, and I want to make it known to you. There is an interest present here. So for that, we've got to use, one of the very well-known facts when it comes to communication is that most of our communication happens through body language, not through words. The words that are exchanged mean very little in comparison to what our body communicates to the other person. This is why the pickup lines don't care. Nobody cares what the pickup lines are. Nobody cares how cheesy it is. Just make a flippin' move. Like, it does not matter.
What was the one I heard the other day? Here I thought there were only 5 glorious mysteries, and then you come along.
Yeah, or the classic one. Did it hurt when you fell from heaven? Like, it doesn't matter. We all know they're cheesy. If you have the confidence to go up and play that anyway, even though it's cheesy, that's playfulness. That's engaging. And you're communicating. Okay, we all know this is a bad joke, but hey, this is a pickup line.
Here it is.
So here's my interest in you. That's the communication I'm trying to make. Who cares if it's, particularly clever or it's brand new, or it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Then we've got all of your body language cues as well. These are your physical touches. This is the distance between two people, turning towards each other, eye contact, the laughter that can happen, changing in tone, facial expressions. There's so many body cues that can be given to indicate, yep, I register your interest and I reciprocate the interest back to you as well.
Okay.
And all of those things we can use safely, if you will, appropriately, that don't have to become something that sexually arouses the other person.
Yes.
All of those things are good and healthy to use. And we ought to use them if you want to indicate that you're romantically interested in the other person.
One thing that I would like to just raise is that in a society which is sort of saturated by sort of sexual innuendo, this can be a difficulty. I mentioned Dr. Patrick Carnes earlier, and one of the things he says is that a sexually saturated society, in such a society, flirtation and courtship rituals become tainted by a one-track mind, basically. I mean, I'm not doing him justice. He says it in a very scientific way, but I guess I'm saying it in a Father Sean Burns way that I understand, right? Yeah. He's saying that these things become hijacked by a level of obsession about one particular thing, so that generally all flirtation that happens with another, particularly of the opposite sex, but not necessarily so, is marked by this sort of obsession of sex. So that can be a challenge in a sexually driven world to actually look and go, to have a healthy vision of flirtation. Yeah. That can be a challenge. And I think that's where we have to acknowledge the world in which we're living and actually go, in the world, not of the world.
Exactly.
Not interested in that over there.
Yeah.
And
there's, I'm thinking about two different people here. The person who is immersed in this world and that has shifted their way of thinking about flirtation. Well, this may be, even just listening to this podcast, right? Maybe this is your moment to reassess.
Totally.
Is that me?
Totally.
Is that me? Like, how influenced am I by this hypersexualized world?
Right.
And how does that impact the way that I flirt with people?
Yes, absolutely.
Am I pushing too far on innuendo?
Yep.
Am I pushing too much on physical touch?
Right.
Like, just paying attention. Maybe this is a place to reassess that. Yeah. But on the flip side is the person who may be receiving that.
Yes.
Like, if you're the person who receives from other people this flirtatious interest that is or much more highly influenced by the hypersexualized world, well, it's actually on us, like you said, not of the world.
Right. It
is on us to go, hang on, let me use this as a moment to teach. Yeah, you know what? I'm interested in getting to know you, but whoa, here is a boundary. Yep. Let's play, but no, not that far.
There's a point.
Not that far. Just gently push back.
Yep.
That doesn't have to be a harsh, whoa, mate. You don't have to embarrass. You don't have to walk away, but gently it's on us to go, Not quite. Unless you do get to a point where you go, no, I do need to walk away because you're not respecting.
Yes, not respecting my boundaries. Right. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but that's part of the communication. That's part of the play, is to figure out lighter ways of being able to engage and go, we can still have this playfulness. We can still kind of have fun in this, have joy in this, but I need to also make it clear to you that I'm not kidding when I say, don't touch me like that.
Right.
Or when I say, oh, I didn't find that joke very funny.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
Let's move away from those kinds of jokes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I know that I'm thinking back to a very early interview we did in like season 1 of the podcast. And one of the conversations we had was about certain people just being naturally more flirtatious than others.
With Chris Gilroy.
Yeah. And not necessarily intending to. There's no intention to make any kind of a romantic interest in multiple people or anything like that. But they're just particularly, they have a very strong, or they have a strength when it comes to being flirtatious. There isn't necessarily anything immoral in that if they're not aware that that's what's happening.
I'm with you. Yep.
But if someone has made that person aware that, well, actually, here's that conversation. I don't appreciate this particular intensity that's coming my way. Can we just tone it down a little bit? There might be a good friend that needs to do that for that person. If they then go, well, I'm not changing myself. I'm not toning this down. Like, this is just who I am. Then we may start getting into a problem there, because now we're no longer respecting what other people are asking of us when it comes to interacting with people. We still want to be respectful. Playful doesn't mean disrespect.
No.
There has to be a mutual level of respect there in playfulness. So that would be the only space where we might also need to take some consideration.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense. And it's perfectly plausible that could be the case. And it's like all personalities, there are weaknesses and strengths, and we just have to account for those in the way that we grow in virtue, really, isn't it? I mean, it's learning to master and harness the goodness of our character, and to grow in those areas we know we need to grow in.
And it's just learning that not everyone operates the same way, because we have even like cultural shifts, right? Like one person's gazing upon, like looking at another person in the eyes for an extended period of time can mean a kind of flirtatious, an indication of interest in that person. Whereas for other people in particular cultures, it can be very disrespectful to hold their eye contact for an extended period of time. It can actually mean threatening.
Right.
So it's also just about learning, that didn't go so well. Okay, let me tone that down. Let me try something different. Let's and same goes for like physical touch.
Very sensible.
Right? If there's lots of physical touch happening and the other person's starting to, get smaller and smaller, or they're deliberately getting bigger and bigger to try, like, something's not working. Or they're looking like their body's actually turning away from you.
Yes.
That's the indication they want out.
Right.
Pay attention and go, okay, something went wrong.
And go, okay, something went wrong. And a little examination of conscience can't hurt either. Like, okay, did I transgress an obvious boundary? Have I gone a step too far, and I need to say, hey, do you know what? I transgressed a pretty obvious boundary there. Yeah. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, sometimes that is the case. Yeah. And just owning that.
Yeah.
And then learning from that.
That's right. Yeah. I feel like we've just solved the world's problems in the dating room.
I just want to say that even though I did a lot of the talking for this episode, I just want to make it clear to everyone, this was Padre's idea. This episode was his idea. He was like, Stina, can we do an episode on flirting and whether it's immoral or not? Sure, Padre, let's do that. Next minute, who's doing all the talking?
This was all part of my devious plan, you see.
Oh, dear.
Very good.
But we do want to know whether this landed with you. So let us know if there's something in this podcast that you kind of went, yep, that's been my experience, or yes, that resonates with me. Or if there were things that we didn't say that you would have liked for us to say, like maybe there's some other cues that you think are really obvious that we just missed. Or if you've got other thoughts on if you disagree with something that we've said as well.
Please tell us.
We want to hear from you.
Okay.
So a truth, beauty and goodness before we end this episode, Padre.
Yes, indeed. So for me, it's a resource called Teaching and Learning the Love of God. It's a collection of Ratzinger's homilies. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. It's just stunning and beautiful, and it's homilies that he over his career as an archbishop, and it's just so beautiful, so lovely. I can't even begin to tell you. I can't do it justice. It's just he has such keen insights into human nature, into the love of God, and yeah, really, really beautiful. So yeah. How about you?
For me, it's been the appreciation of God's creativity. I think I bring that up a lot actually on this podcast now that I'm thinking about it. But I've taken to watching a few docos. And so last weekend I watched one on killer whales and just kind of learning, because there's very little that we actually know about them. So just kind of learning about their communication, what that's like, what, you know, how they kind of move. Just simple things like they actually live in like packs, the wrong word, but they live in like groups. They're not like lions that kick out the male and, you know, when they become aggressive and all the females kind of stick to one. They're not like that. So just learning like about different animals and the way they move in the world, and just appreciating, wow, like they're different to humans. They're different to lions. They're different to elephants. And like, wow, that's really creative, God.
That is pretty cool.
Wow. And yeah, just that wonder and awe.
God, you are good.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us for another episode of Living Fullness. We will catch you again next week. But until then, know about love and press.
God bless.